Hi everyone, I'm Mandy and welcome to my channel. So to set the scene for today's video, I have to take you back to Christmas. So, it's December. The snow is falling, or you are sweating because you live in Australia now and you're fighting 40-degree heat waves. For the sake of the story, let's just pretend. Now, one of the gifts I received in my stocking led me to receiving exactly $16.40, which was quite exciting. And this was, of course, when Steam's annual winter sale was going on. So I thought it would be a fun challenge to grab that money and see how far I could take it in the context of finding cheap little gems on the Steam store. I often see some of my favorite games dropping below $3, and I think that's so amazing. You really can get some incredible value for your money on Steam. So I did a lot of browsing and I was able to come up with 5 games that cost me a total of $16.73 Australian, which is roughly $11.50 US. 5 games for less than $17 sounds like a great deal, but we won't know for sure until we actually dive into them and see what they're all about. So that's what I've been doing. I haven't beaten them yet, but I'll show you how many hours I've logged on each of them so you have an idea of where I'm coming from. So here are my picks and my impressions. So the first game we're going to talk about today is an interesting little action-adventure called Anuchard. This one was 60% off at $3.51 AUD, or about $2.50 US. Initially I was drawn to this game because I found the visuals very aesthetically pleasing. Something about it gave me a strong sense of Nintendo DS nostalgia. I can't really pinpoint what it was, maybe the colourfulness of it, or the way that the character sprites were so minimalistic but still had a clear personality, I don't know. But a quick look at the reviews sealed the deal for me, and I was really eager to try it out. It's apparently a 10-hour experience, and as of this recording, I've logged about 4. So here's what I think of it so far. The story was actually a lot more interesting than I was expecting. It's set in a town called Anuchard that has a mysterious dungeon where people who enter are never able to leave. It's described as a labyrinth that is really difficult for people to find their way through, so after a time their souls become trapped and their bodies are turned into stone. The main character is something of a chosen one, who, thanks to this magical bell relic, has the power to navigate the dungeon's complicated passageways and come out intact. So they're tasked with going on quests to find the villagers' lost souls and return them to their bodies. I was pleasantly surprised by the quality of the writing in this one. I feel like it's getting harder and harder for me to find games with dialogue that feels interesting and memorable, and I wouldn't say this is the best of the best, but there were definitely moments where the characters were expressing rather complex emotions. Some of the side quests had topic matter I really didn't expect, and I think that added to the heart of the game quite nicely. I think the battle system does leave something to be desired. It's not bad, but basic attacks feel a little stiff, and at least at this point in the game, there isn't a ton of complexity to it. One thing I do really like is that some of the enemies have shields, and they won't sustain any damage until you break that shield, which you do by using a heavy attack to slam them into a wall. I think this is a lot of fun, especially when you're juggling multiple enemies like you see here. The other interesting part of the combat is that you have a magical Spire you can charge up, and when it's activated it will gradually restore your HP. The first few dungeons were fairly straightforward, but they did get more interesting as I progressed with the game. Usually you'll be going in with the objective to retrieve a specific person's soul. Everyone's dungeon has a certain amount of special items to find, which can be used as currency to spend at the workshop to power up your Spire or upgrade things in the town. This is a nice addition to the game, but I think with it being such a short experience, there may not be enough room for these elements to shine in the way that they could in a game with a bigger scope, but we'll see how I feel about that in the second half of the game. Anyway, so far I'd say Anuchard is worth the money I paid for it, and I am planning to continue playing it. It's one of those games I wouldn't call a must-play, but I do think there's a place for it. As someone who gets into a lot of gaming slumps, I really do value short RPGs. Even if this one could use work in some areas, it has kept me engaged for 4 hours and counting, and I think there's absolutely $2.50 worth of value in that. The next game I'm sharing is Sudoku Acres. For this one, I paid $375 AU or $250 US, which was a 50% discount off the original price. It's basically just picture Sudoku with a farming theme. It definitely feels like the goal was Sudoku meets Stardew Valley. I actually found this one because I was actively searching for a Sudoku game. I got a traditional Sudoku book in my Christmas stocking, so I thought it would be nice to commemorate that by spending my gift money on a digital Sudoku game. If you're unfamiliar with Sudoku, it's a type of logic puzzle that will traditionally have you trying to fill a 9x9 grid with 9 sets of the numbers 1 through 9, following specific placement rules. Those rules being that every column, row, and block of 9 squares has to contain all of the numbers with no repeats. In Sudoku Acres, you replace the numbers with pictures of 9 different farming crops. And what can I say? I love Sudoku. I'm pretty slow with it, but I like to approach it as a relaxing pastime rather than a speed challenge. And Sudoku Acres is very relaxing. It has this additional feature where you earn acorns for every puzzle you complete, and you can use these to purchase cosmetic items to decorate your personal farm with. It's strictly a decorating minigame. There's nothing you can actually do on this farm other than pet your churro, but I think it adds just a little bit more value, which is nice. My only complaint is that there seems to be a bug with the music. There's a really lovely track that plays in the menu, but as soon as I start doing a puzzle, it completely cuts out. That's very disappointing because that's where I'm spending all my time in the game, but hopefully it's something that will be remedied. I believe the game was a one-person project. The dev actually made it as a Christmas present for their wife, which is the sweetest thing. Right now there are 81 puzzles available, and I think there's a decent difficulty mix. I've logged about 5 hours, and I haven't completed them all yet, but I like that I still have more to do in this game. It gives me something nice to play when I just need to keep my mind busy, so I'm very happy to have it in my library. And it feels good to support a wholesome game studio in the process, so that's a win-win. Okay, the next game I picked up was one that has been on my list for the longest time now, and that is the highly esteemed roguelike deck builder, Slay the Spire. This one was 90% off at $369 AUD or $250 US. If you're a fan of deck builders, this is probably a game you're familiar with. It seems like it really had a hand in popularizing the genre in recent years, at least in the video game space. I'd say deck building is one of my favorite elements in tabletop gaming, so I get really excited to try video games that allow you to have all the fun of that with none of the setup. Anyway, as of this recording, I have logged 28 hours in the game, which is by far the most of any of the games on this list, and that probably tells you how much I'm loving it. The way it works is you select one of 4 heroes to play as, although on your first run only one of them will be unlocked, and then you play through 3 different acts that each consist of 16 floors and end with a challenging boss fight. A floor could be a battle, a shop stage, a mystery event, or a rest stop where you can choose to either heal or upgrade a card. You heal between acts, but not usually between battles, so you have to be really intentional about the decisions you make. You get to choose your pathway through each act, so it gives you a little bit of freedom to decide whether you want to prioritize deck refinement or health management. Of course, a strong deck is the thing that will see you through to the end of the game, but if you're being too rash and go into an elite battle at 20% health, the potential card rewards may not matter at all. So battles are turn-based, and you complete all your actions by playing cards. Typically you'll have at least 3 action points to spend each turn, which you can use to play cards in your hand. Now usually your objective is to use offensive cards to whittle down your opponent's health bar, while also using shield cards to mitigate incoming damage. The game actually shows you what your opponent is going to do on their turn, so you know exactly how much damage they'll be hitting you for. If they intend to do 6 damage, but you have a block with a value of 5, then only 1 point of damage will go through. The idea is simple enough on the surface, but as you play through more and more battles and add new cards to your deck, you'll quickly see the encounters grow in complexity and difficulty. There's a lot of strategizing to do every turn, and one of the biggest decisions is deciding if you want to focus on damage reduction or if you have enough leeway to do some bigger offensive plays. But of course, it all depends on what cards are in your hand. Each character has a different pool of cards that reflect their general playstyles, but there is a lot of freedom within those pools to customize very specific and unique battle strategies. Of course, there is an element of randomness in card draw, but you can finesse your deck by removing unwanted cards at special locations, which will increase the probability of drawing the stuff that you really want to be popping up regularly. There's an almost endless variety of options for builds, and honestly, it can be a little overwhelming. Because a lot of effects layer on top of one another, you can find yourself in a place where there's so much going on that you might forget things and fail to maximize the full potential of your build. I often forget what my relics do, for example. For this reason, I'd say the mental load is somewhat higher than what you see in other types of roguelikes, but that is the nature of these games and what makes them so fantastic. Anyway, I do have a feeling that most of you watching this are probably not super interested in these kinds of games, but if you are even a little curious about them, I encourage you to give them a try. I also encourage you to delve into the world of solo tabletop gaming, because that is a wonderful rabbit hole to get lost in. But I'll be here all day if I keep talking about Slay the Spire, so let's move on. The next game I picked up was The Night of the Rabbit, which is a point-and-click game by Daedalic Entertainment. This one was 90% off at $2.99 on the Australian store and $1.99 on the US one. When I was a kid, I played a handful of point-and-click games, but it's not a genre I have that much interest in these days. That said, I was very compelled to try out Night of the Rabbit because it's set in a magical land with talking mice and rabbits and all sorts of other critters. Ever since my friend Jay got me into Bloomburrow and Redwall, I've been obsessed with stories about woodland creatures, and this game seemed to have the perfect setting for that. We play as a human boy named Jerry Hazelnut, and he is an apprentice tree walker, being mentored under the guidance of this quirky anthropomorphic rabbit. A tree walker is a magician who walks between realms via portal trees, and the portal Jerry walks through at the start of the game leads him to the town of Mousewood. I really do adore the atmosphere in this game. Because I associate point-and-clicks with childhood and with picture books and fairy tales, I find that there's an immediate sense of coziness with them, and Night of the Rabbit absolutely feels like you're inside of a beautiful, whimsical picture book. This one averages about 10 hours, and I've only been able to get 2 in so far, so I don't really feel like I have any business being too critical about the puzzles and the gameplay. But I will say, it is feeling a little slow for me so far. I think by nature, the exposition in point-and-clicks is a bit more drawn out, and maybe I just don't have the patience for it. I usually need something exhilarating to keep me coming back to a game, whether that's the story or the gameplay, and I just feel like this one is gonna be a hard one for me to reach for. But I do really love the premise, and the presentation is beautiful. If you've played this one, I would love to hear what you think of it. Either way, I think it is a nice addition to my library, and hopefully one day I'll feel like it's the right time for Night of the Rabbit. I do think it'd be nice to play while curled up in bed on a sick day, so we'll see. And the final game I picked up during the winter sale was an old Falcom RPG called Gurumin, a Monstrous Adventure. This one was 80% off at just $2.79 AUD or $1.99 US. I first found out about Gurumin when I was doing a deep dive into different PSP games a few years back. It was one I was interested in trying out, but I wasn't sure if it would be worth the purchase or not. The reviews were a little mixed, and at that point in time I think it was hovering around $50 USD for the physical. So when I learned it was available on Steam, and often at a crazy discount, I figured it would make more sense for me to spend $2 to see if I actually like it first, and here was the sale I was waiting for. How Long to Beat estimates about 10 hours for the main story, but the Steam page is boasting over 35 hours of gameplay, so we will see. Currently I've logged 4, and I feel like I have a long way to go, but here's what I think so far. The Falcom charm is definitely present in Gurumin. It has that wonderful music that immediately reminded me of Trails, and something about the way the cutscenes moved felt very familiar. The story follows a girl named Perrin who has just moved to this little mining town to live with her grandpa. Disappointed by the lack of other kids in the town, she goes wandering off and ends up befriending some rather cute-looking monsters that live in a hidden settlement nearby. These guys have been having issues with phantoms coming in and attacking them, and stealing their furniture, so Perrin decides to protect them by journeying through the nearby areas and fending off the phantoms. It's pretty fun. I think this one and Slay the Spire are by far my favourite games on this list. The combat has this fantastic gimmick I've never seen before, where you're encouraged to swing your hits in time with the music. At the top of the screen there's a rhythm bar, and you get critical hits every time your attacks are in sync with the beat. I love rhythm games, so the concept of an RPG that relies heavily on musical rhythm is so cool to me. It doesn't always feel like you're hitting with the music though. I think it would have been nice to have some sort of auditory feedback or controller vibration to more clearly signify how your timing is going. I still think it's a really cool feature though. And the dungeon music is really catchy, so it's a lot of fun to sing it to yourself while trying to get those crits. There are more layers to the combat than that too. You've got your typical combos, upgrades, and in this game they do feel nice and fast-paced, much more fluid than Anuchard was, for example. Perrin fights using a drill that levels up when you get crits, and when you take too much damage it seems like it can drop levels too, so you've got to be careful. You can also chain your jump attacks, which is really fun. And it has a great personality. It's one of those old 2000s games that has an almost cartoony anime feeling, if that makes sense. Very nostalgic voice acting and silly dialogue with Perrin and the monsters. Overall, I am very pleased with what I've played of Gurumin so far. Unfortunately, I did have some trouble setting up my PS5 controller with it though. There was something weird going on with the triggers that locked the camera into a spin, and I was actually only able to get it working by completely unbinding the right camera rotation, so I didn't have a lot of freedom with the camera controls. Surprisingly, I wasn't as bothered by that as I probably should have been, which I think is a testament to how engaging I found the gameplay. I think this one is a great deal for $1.99. So those were the 5 super cheap games I picked up during the Steam winter sale. Overall, I'm quite happy with the lineup, and it was really fun to take that gift money and convert it into a small collection of games that I can get hours of enjoyment out of. Especially when it comes to Slay the Spire. That's a game that has and will continue to keep me very entertained. Now, technically I did go 33 cents over my $16.40 limit, but overall I'm gonna count this as a successful challenge. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think of these games if you've played any of them, and let me know if you have any favorite games that you often see on a $2 or $3 discount during Steam sales. Now before I go, I do have something exciting to tell you. I've joined my best friend Jay from Cold Nights Gaming as a co-host on his Cold Takes gaming podcast. We've been doing new episodes every week over on his channel, and they've been so much fun to record. I'm admittedly not the most experienced podcaster, but Jay is so good at these, and he always has a lot of interesting stories to tell. So if you're looking for some long-form content to keep you company throughout the week, I hope you'll check it out. Anyway, that is all from me for today. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you next time. Bye!